Hey everyone, Rick Becker here, chair of End the Unfair Property Tax, the committee that has the ballot on the measure in November for you to vote on so you can give yourself the biggest tax relief you will ever see in your life. And it also reforms and completely transforms how we do property tax so you're no longer frustrated by valuations and mill levies and all sorts of crap you don't understand. So I am refuting the opposition. There's so much baloney out there that's put out by supposed respected leaders, and what they're putting out needs to be refuted. So I have refuted Dr. Aimee Copas before. She is, I think, the executive director for NDCEL, the North Dakota Council of Educational Leaders. I had let's put our banner up there. Go to endpropertytax.com if you've got any questions. And here we go. So this is what I put out on Facebook several days ago. And I said North Dakota Council of Educational Leaders gets an F grade for white papers opposing Measure 4 under the property tax. Now, you have to understand what a white paper is. This is an academic paper. Remember, we're talking about the North Dakota Council of Educational Leaders. We would expect a white paper to actually be legitimate. A white paper is a very well-researched, in-depth article that lays out all of the arguments for, against, whatever it might be, any particular topic. So NDCEL put out a paper, Aimee Copas put out a paper that was nothing but opinion. And it was 1 or 2 pages, nothing supporting it whatsoever. No documentation, no citations, nothing. This would have garnered a grade of F for a high schooler. And so that's what my Facebook post wrote about. No data, there's no resources, it's only opinion. And oddly, or maybe it's not surprising, but it was written by AI, by ChatGPT. Look over here, 94.5% chance it was written by ChatGPT. Here we have a, somewhere in here it says, 100% right here through another AI detector. So it wasn't even written by her. So what she did is came out with a new paper because she said she wanted to add credibility. Apparently, my post got to her. So she wanted to add credibility. So she changed what she wrote and she added links. Now, links are not the same thing as citations. Citations are like, actually, here's where I got the information. Here's how it supports my assertion. Okay, now let's go to her paper. Again, Dr. Aimee Copas is the executive director for NDCEL. Now, I'm going to try and make it quick here, but I want to go through and take the time to click on the links because I want you to see, even when pushed, how poor the supporting documentation is, how poor the arguments are for these guys to try and say what they have been saying is truthful. It's not, and they don't have anything to support it because it's not truthful. So let's just get right down to it. In introduction here. She says the proposed amendment, Measure 4, to eliminate property taxes, poses a serious threat to public education. Okay, this change could drastically disrupt how schools operate, impacting students, educators, and entire communities. So let's click on the link and let's find out, how does that happen? Well, what it takes us to is the tax commissioner's website, where he just talks about property tax statistics. Nothing at all to do with her claim, her allegation, her assertion, nothing. Then she goes on to impact school funding, how it impacts school funding, and a potential loss of $617 million. This is an outright lie, folks. The measure says that the state must replace every single dollar. There's no potential loss of $617 million. $617 million is going to now stay in your pocket because the state is going to replace $617 million to the schools. There is no loss. But to support her allegation that there could be a loss of $617 million, let's click on her link. And, she takes us back to the tax commissioner's website that just is a general informational thing about property tax. Ridiculous. So far, Aimee still gets an F. Let's continue to look down. Limitations on schools. Now, she said this would limit the ability of school districts to raise funds through general obligation bonds. And then for her citation, I guess, it's not a link, but she just writes what the ballot language is. Let me enlarge that for you a little bit if I can. And if you come down here, it says it would prohibit a political subdivision from issuing general obligation bonds secured with tax levied on the assessed value of property. So it eliminates the type of general obligation bond that's secured with property tax. But of course, that makes sense, because if we're getting rid of property tax, you can't have a bond that's secured with property tax, right? But it does not say it gets rid of general obligation bonds. So even what she lists as a very poor citation actually gives proof or evidence for what I'm saying as opposed to what she's saying. If we continue on, the potential effects on education quality, she has no citation for. She says it could go down. Here, constraints on local decision-making. She says, if this passes, there is a section in the North Dakota Century Code that would be repealed, thereby eliminating elected government, the school board's authority to assess up to 12 mills. Well, yes, if we're getting rid of property tax, you can't assess property tax. Okay, but now let's click on the link, because she gives us, let's see where, you know what she does? She just gives a link to the entire Century Code. This is every single law in North Dakota. This is her citation to support her claim, her allegation that there's a constraint on local decision-making. Here, could there be a loss of busing? She says, would this dramatically limit or end busing services for a school? So here's, again, really, really cheap, not academic, not respectful at all. She's not making an assertion. She's just asking a question. Would this reduce busing? And so let's click on her link again. Okay, now what she does is takes us to a 74-page document, just a big old document that has, it's just everything about financing schools. Nothing about this measure or how it would potentially affect busing, which is a ridiculous claim. Now here we have challenges in long-term planning. I'm not sure, there is no link here to click on. Again, she's making a claim that's false and she can't support it. The link I can't go to. There is no link. The role of state government in funding. Okay, now here she says, she takes us to a chapter 15.1-27 state aid. So her claim is that the role of decision-making goes to the state. And what she's pointing to is nothing except the entire chapter of how the state gives money to all the locals for the schools, right? It's actually embarrassing. It's really, really embarrassing. Let's go on. She says that this could impact property values and property ownership. Again, nothing to support this claim. It's just a fear-mongering approach. That's really all they have. So let's click on her link, give her the benefit of the doubt, see what she has to say. Oh, it happens to be simply an interview between Senator Paulson and Aimee Copas from North Dakota Farm Bureau, who, by the way, has endorsed Measure 4. North Dakota Farm Bureau has endorsed Measure 4. And this is just talking about the concerns about foreign ownership of land. Nothing to do with Measure 4, nothing to do with property taxes. Let's see here. Okay, and then outside interest, making it harder on North Dakota. Again, it's the same thing, same thing. Here's an article, North Dakota farmers still have to navigate corporate land ownership policy maze. Nothing to do with anything that we're talking about, Measure 4 or otherwise. I'm just really, really, I know I'm beating a dead horse maybe by now, but I want you to see that even the so-called highly respected experts are making allegations, and they're cloaked in some kind of academic validity. There's nothing here, folks. There's nothing. Even the executive director of the Council of Educational Leaders can't put together two sentences that can stand up to any kind of scrutiny. Again, a high school student would do infinitely better. It says loss of stable revenue. She goes to Tax Foundation. Now, Tax Foundation came out against it. Unfortunately, now this is where she potentially starts to actually get into her citations anything to do with the measure of property tax. Tax Foundation, by the way, unfortunately, were given bad information. They, for instance, are under the impression that the state doesn't need to replace all of the property tax, even though that's what it says in the measure. They also, in their paper, had indicated that this would be 2/3 of state income, where in their own documents, their own numbers, it's way, way, way less than that. It's like 20%, less than 20%. So here she goes. And she says bonds without property tax backing would be riskier. That's not true, but let's go to her link and see how that's supported. And here, what you have is just an article on municipal bonds. And I've read through it. There's nothing at all to support what she's saying. It's the same thing here with credit ratings. It's also look, it's the same thing. It has nothing to do. Oh my gosh, I'm just so embarrassed for her. But here we go. National Tax Foundation. This is the first thing that here she says. Now she doesn't actually make any sort of analysis on her own. She just quotes the tax foundation and then gives the source. Again, I've told you, unfortunately, very unfortunately, the tax foundation has completely bad information. I emailed them and let them know that their numbers are wrong, but we'll see. So let's click out of that, and that's all I've got for you. The opposition has nothing, folks, nothing except fear. And if you ask questions, if you push back at all, just to simply say, please support what you're saying here, because I don't know how to vote on Measure 4. What you're saying is scaring me, but please tell me more. How is this true? How is it that there would be loss of funding when the measure says that there can't be loss of funding? How is it, go on and on. So ask questions. I hate to be hard on Aimee, but this is a crappy paper, Aimee. You did a poor job, and then when you came back, you just made it worse. And Rich Wardner, no better. We went through his paper before. Horrible. Every single one of these documents these people are putting out is a farce. It's an embarrassment. And really, it's so bad. It's disrespecting you, because it's assuming that the people of North Dakota are so stupid that anything they say, that people are just going to take it in and believe it. That's what they're relying on for this to fail at the ballot box. We need to rely on truth and being informed. That's how this is going to pass. Anyway, take care, you guys. Have a good